Yeah.
And that's all that matters.
Threw some stuff together.
I turned around and went.
All right, would you please rise and join me in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you all for being here this evening. Kay, could you call the roll?
Dennis,
Here.
Harold,
Here.
Hollenbaugh,
Here.
Phipps,
Here.
Robinette,
Here.
Roland,
Here.
Zanfordino.
Here.
Okay. The rather lengthy minutes from our last meeting were distributed for your perusal. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? All right, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Correspondence. Kay, do we have any correspondence this evening?
Yes, I have a couple of things. Distributed to you prior to the meeting was a listing of budget transfers to be made for the month of November, and those require your approval.
Do I have a motion to approve the budget transfers?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Okay,
And then also received from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control was an application for a C1, C2 liquor permit for Speedway LLC, doing business as Speedway 5253 at 1650 East Wooster Street, and there are no zoning conflicts for that. And that's all I have.
okay. That brings us to lobby visitations. Do we have anyone signed up this evening?
Yes, Justin Rex.
All right. If you could please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Justin Rex, and I'm actually a Perrysburg resident. I live at 408 West 7th Street in Perrysburg, but I work at BGSU, and so I'm kind of coming here on behalf of students and other residents. I've done some research on eviction in Wood County and Bowling Green, and so wanted to communicate that for the council tonight, given there's some interest in considering right to counsel legislation at the city level.
All right, thanks a lot. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so just a little background on myself. So I teach political science at BGSU, and I've been there for 6 years. And I actually grew up in Bowling Green and went away for school and got back a few years ago teaching here. And so I teach in the political science department, as I said, and teach classes on poverty and public policy and public administration. And I'm also a member of the Continuum of Care, Wood County. So a local coalition of nonprofits and religious groups that work on housing and homelessness issues, and have been a member of that for about 4 years. So I'm not here speaking on behalf of either of those groups. Opinions are my own, but I just wanted to give that background to kind of inform my comments this evening. And so just a couple of things I wanted to mention, talk about eviction trends in the county and a little bit of information at the BG city level based on some national data, and then also data some of my students have collected from court records at BG's municipal court and Perrysburg's court as well. And then talk about some of the impacts of eviction and why right to counsel, among some other provisions, may be a good response to the needs here locally. And it's been done in communities around the country and at the state level in some states as well. So in terms of trends, going back further, we don't have a lot of data at the specific city level, but at the county level is the best data I can get. And so from the Eviction Lab, which is a lab run by Princeton University, if we look at eviction trends going back to 2000, from about the 2000-2008 period, we saw about 313 eviction filings per year in Wood County, and about 138 evictions actually processed where people were removed from their home or apartment. In 2009, partly in response to the crisis, the economic crisis in 2008, we saw that jump up quite a bit. And so from 2009 to 2016, which is the most current data I can get at the county level, there were about 534 eviction filings per year and 315 evictions at the Wood County level. And so my students have started to collect some more up-to-date information at the BG, at the county level, but also breaking it down by BG Municipal Court and the city, as well as Perrysburg. And so what we've seen from the data they collected, they did a study looking at the period of September 1st to January 31st in the 2019-20 period, basically to look at pre-COVID times. And then they did the same measure looking at September 1st, 2020 to January 31st, 2021. And so tried to compare what we were seeing in terms of the trends. And so they found that there were 123 filings in Wood County in that first period, kind of pre-COVID. And there were 62 filings in the BG Municipal Court. And then in BG itself, for residents in the city, there were 39 evictions. And so we saw that jump up a little bit at the county level in the COVID time period. This is also a time period when there was a national moratorium on evictions, but through loopholes, there were a lot still processed. And so saw that jump up a little bit to 163 at the county level, 59 through the BG Municipal Court, and 36 in the city of BG. And so about the same level in the city of BG, kind of pre-COVID and then during COVID, during that moratorium. We're currently filed a records request with BG Municipal Court to get more up-to-date trends. So I can report that out if anybody's interested. Once we get that data, they unfortunately couldn't get us to it, get us that information by this evening. So I can update that, like I said. The big thing in terms of takeaway of the trends is these are formal evictions that go through the court process, but we know based on national data that is about half of all evictions that takes place. And so you could double those numbers based on informal eviction filings, where maybe the landlord will refuse to make major maintenance concerns. And so that kind of pushes people out the door, or they'll raise the rent unexpectedly at the last minute, or tear the door off and not let them back in, or not put it back on as a way to kind of push them out. And so informal evictions happen quite a bit. In terms of the impacts, based on academic research, that's been done at the national level and in various cities, we know that eviction isn't just a consequence of poverty, but is a direct cause of poverty, in terms of people being evicted, maybe expelled, removed out of their community, children having to move schools, losing possessions in the process. It's also harder to find a new place once you've got an eviction, a formal eviction on your record. And it's associated with increased mental stress, job loss, and lots of other hardships associated with that. And so they make a big impact, even though we've got a somewhat small number yearly in Bowling Green. And so one potential response to that, I think council, as I understand, has already adopted a way to protect source of income discrimination, which is a key provision to help low-income renters, who may have been evicted before and may be receiving vouchers to find a place to live. But additionally, one way to help out people who may be facing eviction is to provide them with the right to counsel, just like we see in criminal proceedings where everybody has a right to an attorney. And so you could pass a local ordinance that would allow people to have access to a free attorney to help them during those eviction proceedings. Based on my students' data gathered locally, 96% of the evictions they looked at in Wood County, residents that were being evicted did not have access to an attorney, and that was in both of the waves that we looked at. So that fits with national data. About 90% of renters do not have any attorney when they're going through a formal eviction proceeding. About 90% of landlords do. And so there's already a power imbalance, and that exacerbates when you're going through the court proceeding. And so why might this be helpful? Cleveland and Toledo have both passed legislation to give tenants right to counsel during eviction proceedings. And so based on some of the data, when Cleveland launched their program about a year and a half ago, within the first 6 months, 93% of those who were provided counsel during their hearings avoided an involuntary move. 83% were able to get additional time to delay the move a little bit, which assisted them. So they may have still been evicted, but were helped through the process. And 89% of those who were seeking to mitigate the damages in terms of landlords filing for a financial restitution against their client, they were able to mitigate those damages. So they were able to mitigate the financial burden of those evictions. And so I guess the big picture is eviction. We tend to think about it as a large city urban problem, but it's still happening at the county level and in Bowling Green, and so is related to lots of other affordable housing problems that we see in the county as well. So in terms of the solutions, right to counsel is one I would advocate before, but we've also seen other programs like eviction diversion programs. So the city of Toledo has instituted kind of a landlord-tenant mediation program. And so it's a way to have a sit down with a mediator and a landlord and the tenant before they would go to court and try to informally negotiate the process, either help them stay in their home or find a solution that's amicable to both parties and avoids going to court. And so that would be an alternative way to, or a supplemental way to help out people who are facing eviction. So in conclusion, happy to answer more questions. And if you've got any other questions that students could help answer through research, I'm always looking for projects that they can help do related to class and give them some good experience doing public policy research. So I'd be happy to answer more questions that way too. So thanks for your time.
Mr.
All
President.
right. Just a minute. If you'd be willing to hang around, I'm sure some council members might have questions for you after the meeting.
Sure.
So thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Would you be able to, once you're comfortable with the data that you've obtained, put in some sort of a summary document? Doesn't have to be fancy, just something where we can digest the figures that you gave.
Absolutely. So I've got a few reports that have done in the past that
Okay.
and I also want to get that more. See the most.
Yeah, I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. There is no new legislation for introduction this evening, which brings us to official reports. Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, Council. I have no report, but of course we'll answer any questions you have. But I did just want to say that, of course, you're all aware of the fact that tomorrow's Election Day. I'd like to
What?
I'd like to encourage everybody, if you haven't already, to exercise your constitutional right to vote. It's a very important right that many people throughout the course of our history have sacrificed, one that I personally take very seriously. I hope that everybody in our community will as well. There are a great number of important community issues on there that merit your participation in the democratic process. I will get off my soapbox in terms of encouraging everybody to vote and answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions for the mayor?
And you're encouraging people to vote once.
Yes, we're not going to adopt the Chicago model of voting early and often.
Okay.
All right. I'll try to restrain myself then. All right. I don't think we have any questions. Municipal Administrator, Ms. Treader.
Good evening. Just a couple updates for you. November 1 means that later this month, we will have some wonderful community events coming up. There will be some public impacts from those events that we will put out the specifics via all of our communications tools that are available to us. And in Joe's report sneak preview, we'll be talking a little bit more about our communications department. But note that November 19th, Friday night, is the community tree lighting in front of the library. We do a Court Street closure in conjunction with that. And then on Saturday morning, November 20th, will be our holiday parade down Main Street. So again, stay tuned for details, but as we are well aware, that is a large closure on Main Street, including the removal of parking in the downtown area on Main Street. Several side streets are also impacted as those are used to stage for the parade and exit from the parade. So we do ask for citizens' patience, cooperation, and of course, to come out and enjoy those community events. Any questions for me this evening?
Questions for Ms. Treader?
President?
Mr. Harold?
Lori, I'm not sure if this would be something for you or someone else. Three things. One, I think a number of us have gotten some information about or some feedback about restroom restrictions in City Park and Carter Park. I assume the administration's obtained that as well. Has there been any thought to revising that, the restricted hours and restricted restrooms?
Joe is planning to talk about that
Okay.
during the Public Services Director's report.
Excellent. The second of the three items. A while back, one of the recommendations of the Community Improvement Committee, when we were looking at rental registration and inspection, was an ordinance to create a neighborhood enhancement fund. And I know when this was discussed earlier, there was some thought to, well, the whole grant process and how the various ways of putting that together was being reviewed, and this would be part of that. And so basically, I'm just seeing if there's an update or a status report on the possibility of creating the, I would call it the Mike Marsh Neighborhood Enhancement Fund, since it's his idea.
I think certainly it is still under review and discussion, and I can give you an update. The legislation as it was considered at that time, since then, we have looked at ways that we could better incorporate it with our existing programs and our existing protocols that are mostly grant funded. So I think that instead of establishing a new program, there may be opportunity to go after those neighborhood enhancements under the provisions of existing programs. So the question then becomes, if you're trying to extend the program, is there additional money? And if so, what is that money? As the mayor has shared with all of you in looking at the American Rescue Act funding, he has talked about neighborhood revitalization regularly and stated that as a goal. And I could see that being as a potential consideration under that. That is certainly something he has stated publicly and something that is still actively being considered, how we could effectively utilize that in our neighborhoods.
Great. I appreciate the update. The third item is a while ago, and then relatively recently, it was requested that the administration look into initiating some sort of a city income tax credit for residential green energy production. And my hope, at least, was that it would be in conjunction with the budget process, because it would have an impact on the monies coming in and being dispersed. Could you give an update on that? And if you don't want to give an update right now for whatever reason, it's in process or whatever, but that's fine. I just wanted to revisit it and see if there is a potential status report on it.
So in follow-up to that request, I did discuss this issue with President Hollenbaugh, and you at the time had a meeting, council had a full meeting on your schedule to discuss your goals for the coming year, and we decided to wait until that meeting to see.
Okay.
Of course, analyzing that, proposing that is going to be diverting resources from other things, to conduct that. And so as of yet, we have not undertaken that.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Treader? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Marsh. Are there any questions for Mr. Marsh? All right. Public Services Director, Mr. Fawcett.
First, I just want to say thank you, Mike, for yielding your time to me. I took that from Kristen since I'm giving her report tonight. Two things from the parks. The first is a public service announcement, reminder that Party in the Parks, or Party for the Parks, excuse me, is in replace of the wine and cheese event. So the flyer I'm handing out to you is for more information about that. The second thing from the parks is to get to the question that Bill posed to Lori, that I'm sure all of you received some feedback from residents about, and that's an early closure of some of the restrooms in the park. The one closure in City Park over by the skate park was in direct connection to vandalism. And actually the bathroom on the east portion of the City Park was also in connection with vandalism. Those bathrooms or bathrooms throughout the parks do close on an annual basis, generally in the November timeframe, primarily because they're not winterized. However, the one by the skate park closed this year and closed early because the vandalism has grown to the point where we needed to take a step back and to assess maybe a more proactive security stance for those restrooms, unfortunately. It wasn't a single incident. It wasn't a single soap dispenser being pulled off the wall. It was an escalating type of issue that's been kind of a growing problem all year long. So in the short term, we've placed a handicap accessible porta potty over in that area. So there's at least a restroom in the park for users, and we're working on a long-term solution right now. Pending your questions, I was going to turn it over to Amanda.
President. With respect to the update, and thank you for the update. One resident brought up that although the porta potty would handle a lot of the volume or number of uses, there are also some restrictions, obviously being a porta potty, and they suggested that perhaps some sort of a camera or video or something, not in the restroom itself, but outside, that would view coming and going. I don't know whether that would be a good option or not, but I thought maybe I should at least bring it up and see if that's something that would perhaps be considered to have the restroom remain open.
Yep.
Yep,
it's under consideration.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
I had a conversation with Joe this week, and he shared with me several things that the administration is looking to do. And I know that ideally you want to have restrooms available for people whenever the park is open. And I'm confident that in fairly short order that they are going to come up with a solution that does what we need it to do. So thank you very much.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Any other questions about?
Any potty questions?
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
it's my understanding there's also a litter problem, which we have put signage out regarding.
I haven't heard that, but I can get more information about that.
Do we typically leave trash containers out this time of year, or have those been pulled?
I'll have to get more information. I don't. Could you email me kind of a more detailed question?
Yes.
All right. Any other park-related questions?
Joe, the restaurant, I haven't been out to see the porta potty, but is there like a little washing station there? I mean, is it?
I haven't frequented the bathroom either, but I can certainly ask.
I haven't been in it, but I've been by it, and it is one of the larger porta potties. So I'm not sure if it's handicap accessible or not, but it is large for a porta potty.
Thank you.
Okay. So the last thing from public services this evening, maybe, is exciting news. A number of council goals and mayoral goals kind of came to fruition this year in the formation of the communications department and kind of filling out that with our last team member. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda to introduce the newest member of our team.
I always pick the right meetings to come to. A tough act to follow, really. But no, it is my pleasure to introduce our new community affairs coordinator, Hallie Williams. If you can just stand up and give a wave here. Hallie was formerly working with Seneca County's OSU Extension Office as an extension educator, and we kind of stole her from them. So she's been here for about 3 weeks now and has already hit the ground running on quite a few projects. And I mean, we just keep throwing it at her. So she also got to meet over bathrooms a week or so ago. So we welcome her. I know there'll be plenty of opportunities for you all to get to know her, and you'll be seeing her work more and more as she gets to know the city, and is really going to help us quite a bit with our outreach efforts. So we're excited to have her here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Welcome. And when you hired in, you were hoping that one of your first topics would be restrooms, right?
All right. You'll fit right in then.
Yeah.
So is that it for you, Joe, then? Okay. Public Infrastructure Director, Mr. O'Connell.
Just one item for you tonight. The city received an award from the American Public Power Association recently, and Amanda put out a press release for this here, I think just this evening. But it's for the Smart Energy Provider Award, SEP for short. So basically, we submitted an application several months ago, and it's a long list of questions that you answer and respond back to them about your programs and what you offer for your electric customers. And it covers things such as information you provide and about your programs, energy efficiency, environmental and sustainability programs, and then communication, education, and customer experience about your electric utility. Amanda does a lot of the work for us, and she puts all the information together by gathering up from different resources. This is the second time that we've received this award. We got it 2 years ago. It's on a 2-year cycle. So in this year, in 21, there were 70 utilities, public power utilities across the country that received the award. So just another benchmark for us to judge ourselves compared to other utilities and see how we're doing with our programs, and saying that we're trying to do some positive things and encouraging things in the community, and that we met the threshold. So again, you'll see the press release if you haven't seen it already, and that's all I have for you unless you have questions.
All right, well, that's good news. Are there any questions for Mr. O'Connell? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to council committee reports. Do we have any council committee reports this evening?
Mr. President,
Mr. Harold.
two reports. One, the Transportation and Safety Committee met earlier this evening, and we were treated to a comprehensive description of the process by which the city came up with a list of streets to be improved with the legislation we have for second reading tonight. And so I'm appreciative of the extra effort that was put forth to let us know how things were going with that. And the second is kind of a committee report, and that is the Sidewalk Commission met last week to prioritize sidewalks to be undertaken next year. And I can tell you that it's probably no surprise to you, but we had more sidewalks that need work than money. But we did manage, with quite a bit of help from Brian Kraft, to put together a priority list for the Public Works to work through. And I would encourage the rest of council to give due consideration to upping the amount of money, either in the budget, but also with the next phase of the ARPA money, to go ahead and work our way down that priority list. As I mentioned in the Transportation and Safety Committee meeting, one way to engage in significant neighborhood revitalization is to improve streets and sidewalks. A good example of that is Clay Street. And so it would accomplish a number of our goals if we were to be able to chip away at the sidewalks that need work. And so that's my report, Mr. President.
Any other council committee reports this evening? Okay, that brings us to the reading of legislation. Kay?
There is no legislation for first reading. Legislation for second reading. Resolution number 3806 for second reading. Resolution authorizing the sale of obsolete or unfit municipally owned personal property which is not needed for public use by internet auction, and authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into a contract with GovDeals Incorporated for ongoing internet auctions for calendar year 2022. Resolution number 3807 for second reading. Ordinance authorizing the municipal administrator to enter into a renewal of the agreement with the Wood County Public Defender. Ordinance number 8971 for second reading. Ordinance amending and adopting Section 33.04 of the codified ordinances of the City of Bowling Green, Ohio, relative to pay scales for seasonal employees. Ordinance number 8972 for second reading. Ordinance authorizing the Public Services Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for various roadway improvements. Ordinance number 8973 for second reading. Ordinance authorizing the Utilities Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract or contracts for supplying annual inventory requirements, underground and overhead lines insurance, sale of scrap materials, and participation in the AMP Joint Purchasing Program in 2022. Ordinance number 8974 for second reading. Ordinance amending the zoning district map of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio for approximately 4.21 acres of land located at 300 East Poe Road from M2 General Industrial to B2 General Commercial Zoning as petitioned for by Robert and Patricia Mauer. Legislation for third reading. Ordinance number 8969 for third reading. Ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Bowling Green, Ohio to enter into a housing revolving loan fund administration agreement.
Mr. President,
Mr. Zanfordino.
I move that we adopt ordinance 8969.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, okay,
Harold?
Yes.
Hollenbach?
yes.
Phipps? Yes. Robinette?
Yes.
Roland?
Yes.
Zanfordino?
Yes.
Dennis?
Yes.
All right, ordinance 8969 is adopted. Is there any other business to come before city council this evening? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.